Since the Sandbox fans, we are back, and it is officially time for the part 3 of the Since the Sandbox Power Ranking. 10-1 teams that just missed. A couple of playoff teams going to be outside that top 10. But with the back end of the season coming down, like this is what it's all about. And there's still going to be movement when we do this one last time going into the playoffs and 100%. What we're really valuing. That's more of like a contender, like temp check type thing. Rather than anything else. But we hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving. Once again, thank you all for helping us contribute to the East Boston Community Soup Kitchen with our can drive. Another successful year, over 1,300 items, and we're looking to continue to show out for the toy drive, which will go from now through December 20th, and our event will be December 14th at the Orient Heights Yacht Club, so make sure to come and hang out with your boys. Twon. Oof. All right, I think we should, before we get into 10-1, we should get the teams that are out of the way first.
Give me your list. Run through those the 15 to 11 teams. I assume you have a couple out there because there are a couple that are.
I do have a 15 to 11, okay. So that's kind of where it's at. My 15 is the Falcons. In my 14, right above them is the Bucks.
My Falcons 16.
Okay.
So $14 you said?
Yeah.
Same.
So. And look, I know it's very contradicting because the Falcons beat the Bucks twice. But I think that's more of like an in the division type of thing rather than anything else. I do think Atlanta goes into Minnesota and wins this week.
I think so. I kind of think so too.
Yeah, Minnesota's due for a loss.
Revenge.
Yes, absolutely. So it might not be pretty, but I do think it happens, and I think there's a shit ton of yards in this game.
Dude, points go. So this is what this game with the Vikings is what we thought the Chargers-Falcons was going to be.
Bro, that's crazy that there was no points in that. But it also goes to show you how important field goal kicking is in the NFL because Koo missed kicks, Tucker missed kicks. These are teams that, with those kicks hit, we're talking about different results, impacting the entire league.
Dude, and Kirk is out here thrown into triple coverage at least twice a drive. That was the worst performance I've ever seen from Kirk. Kirk Cousins has had some really great games, had some meh games, had some bad games.
Yeah.
That might have been the worst game I've ever seen Kirk Cousins play.
But what I will say is everyone does need to pause on the panic about a panic should come in now.
No, not yet.
Now we're getting dramatic. This is a team that's going to contend for a playoff spot.
Yep.
Being on top of that division is going to be really interesting, but we don't want to spend too much time on the back end. At 13 above both those teams, another NFC team, the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay, they're my 15, so they're we got 3 teams that are all around each other.
I do not have Seahawks in my top 15.
You do not?
I do not.
Wow.
I do not.
Okay, they're in first in the division
They're in first in the division.
Okay. Listen, Jags, Texans last year. I get it. You did it. I get it. I'm not going to sit here and say anything.
Dude, honestly, I just think the Cardinals game is going to be very telling. I don't like that the Seahawks are dog, but it's pretty much a pick 'em in this one. It's 2.5. It'll probably go down to 1. Arizona is home. I'm not counting the Rams out yet either. Very similar approach as they were last year. Same thing with Green Bay.
Seattle's got a good division record, though.
They do. It's just how it all trickles out is going to be extremely impactful. Them having a 2-game lead right now is huge. Because when you consider the division wins, them only being 1 win above them, I still kind of consider that too. But it's going to be really interesting to see how that all falls out through the rest of the season. My 12 and 11, 2 teams in the AFC West. 12 is the Broncos, and 11 is the Chargers.
Okay.
I think you can flip-flop them. I think anyone in 15 to 11 with this being my outside tier, I really feel a lot of those teams are interchangeable, and if you wanted to put the Seahawks in that conversation, I'm here for it. Personally, the reason why the Seahawks are a little bit more on the back end here, they don't have the ground success that I feel that they should have. Everyone's hyped up about the win that they had to the Jets, but the Jets realistically are a bottom-of-the-barrel team, and they shouldn't have been behind in that game regardless. And if you want me looking in that same division, Arizona just played a 10-2 Vikings team and almost won. So I kind of feel like Seattle's going into Arizona, and Arizona's the team to beat in this one. That's just how I feel, and I know that their studs aren't playing like it, but as a whole, as a team, they're producing and they're doing what they're supposed to. 6-6 is over exceeding expectations already for the Arizona Cardinals. Seahawks have a lot more talent. Geno's not playing great. They've had some struggles with the wide receiver room. And where the hell is Kenneth Walker? Like the defense.
Halfway through the season, gone.
The defense has been playing like a little bit better, but it's not because of skill. It's because they're more healthy. Like, take away a Leonard Williams 97-yard touchdown off a deflected pass, and that's a different game result. And that would impact Seattle's positioning in your rankings. That's just kind of how I broke down the outside scenario.
So Seattle, while I have them above the Cardinals, I don't have them in the top 10. They are here at 11. Broncos are there at 12, and I got Texans at 13. So I did pull the Texans out. I mean, listen, they haven't looked to it. If they went out there and they did what I thought they should have done and beat the Jags by 40, like they should have done, they just let the Jags kind of creep back into that game, and I don't like seeing that. If I'm going to put you in the top 10, I need to see you shut the door on the worst team in the NFL, one of the worst teams in the NFL. We got some stinkers of our own.
But here's like what I will say, though. Like, division game in that scenario, right? 2 weeks ago, the Steelers just lost to the Browns.
Correct.
Are we holding the Steelers with that much weight? Like, no. Like, I get it. The Texans have played drastically worse than the Steelers have this year. And I think everybody thinks that the Steelers are going to go get right versus the Browns this week. I get that Houston's definitely, not living up to the expectations, but I think that those were obnoxiously, abnormal expectations
set by me.
But like, not just you. There were so many other people that felt that way.
But I look at the Steelers-Browns and that's what the Texans-Titans game is to me. Is they both dropped those division games. Okay, what does Steelers do? They end up beating a Ravens team on the other side. They beat the Bengals this week in a shootout. They beat the Bengals in a shootout. They played the Bengals game and they won.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm looking at Houston and it's the reason I have them out is, listen, you lost to Tennessee. Your studs have not been playing as well as we've expected. Joe Mixon's played unbelievable. C.J. Stroud has not been the C.J. Stroud that we're looking for this year. The defense has taken a step back, in my opinion, this year. They've had some moments, but why is Jalen Petrie not playing like one of the best safeties in the NFL again this year? He's doing all right.
Yeah.
But last year, Jalen Petrie was holy shit, this guy's a monster.
I think a lot of injuries up front are impacting the secondary play. You do hear Stingley and Petrie very minimally, but I definitely understand. We're hearing about Azeez Al-Shaair with all the beef going down and everything like that. I think
that's when you should be allowed to scrap, by the way. You should be that's where you mix the hockey rule in, helmets come off, gloves come off, throw hands and walk away.
Yeah. But I kind of think Will Anderson's more of the guy that kind of got figured out this year. He's not playing, and no one even knows that Danielle Hunter's there.
I know. He's been nothing.
So I think that's more of the problem. But it doesn't help Houston's argument in my rankings, but in yours, they're 8-5, and they still have the Ravens and the Chiefs on their schedule.
I know. It's going to get tricky. Now, I think this is just going to be one of those situations where they beat the Chiefs, they lose to the Ravens. It's
well, even if they lose both of those games, they're still an 11-win team, which is still great.
Very, very good. 100%. But there's still more season left. We got to see. They're not one of these teams. When I look at the top 10, if they're playing a matchup they should win, I'm confident in picking them. Right now, as the Texans, prior to this week, I was okay, listen, they dropped one of the Titans. It's not that big a deal. But then right after that, you follow up on a close game with the Jaguars after Trevor Lawrence gets knocked out. And I know that there's the whole thing of, now the Jags are a little extra fired up and stuff. But, they're also watching their guy just get carted off because he got knocked out cold.
Yeah. I think the bye comes at a good time for Houston right now.
They need it really bad, get themselves together, and I think D'Amico Ryan's going to do a good job of getting their heads on straight. But the teams that I have above the Texans in terms of the top 10, when they play a team that they should beat, I'm more confident that they're going to go out there and beat them than I am the Texans doing that right now.
I feel that. And just to quickly touch on my 12 and 11, I think you can put the Chargers and the Broncos in whatever scenario that you really want to. I think the reason why I gave the slight edge to the Chargers, even though they're a little bit more banged up right now, is coaching, one, and two, like, I'm still at this moment taking Justin Herbert over Bo Nix. Bo Nix is playing unreal.
Unbelievable.
I still don't think it's rookie of the year stuff just because of what we've seen from Jaden and what he's been able to do for that franchise. What I will say is the Denver Broncos defense is head over heels better than the Chargers. Like, with the way that they're playing, I mean, they should have had 2 pick sixes last night. A lot of my fantasy leagues, I have both the Broncos and the Chargers defense, and I couldn't have gone wrong because they both put up 20 plus.
I know, they literally did. They absolutely routed it so good.
But
I agree, though. I think Denver's defense is better than the Chargers, but I think the Chargers can, like, if the game's close, I trust the Chargers to come out on top a little bit more than I do with the Broncos. I just think there's more to do for them.
I trust, even with the injury to J.K. Dobbins, I think I still trust the playmakers in L.A. a little bit more than Denver.
So, like, Ladd McConkey's the best skill player out of both teams, I think.
Yes.
I think, like, Cortland Sutton's great,
yeah.
But after Cortland Sutton, there is a significant fall-off, at least in my opinion, whereas for the Chargers, like,
After
Palmer is a little. He's kind of like he's more productive than I would say like a Vele is.
Yeah.
Or like Troy.
I
Franklin
like
can come
Vele,
up.
but like Johnston's been probably on par with Vele. I would probably say, if not a little bit better.
And I like how Disley, like, even though this week was not the week to show it, but like Disley has been a really good check down option for him. And listen, Sean Payton's a great coach, but I think with what Jim Harbaugh has been able to do for the Chargers based off of the horrendous season they had last year and realistically the year before after that fall off to the Jags, that gives me makes me feel better about putting them in spoiler alert, Steve, the Chargers are my 10.
Okay.
So they're right there at 10. They're right on the fringe. But I like how and I look at a game like they played against the Ravens. I like how they played, they lost, but I like how they played a tough team in the Ravens.
Question with your 10, and this will also reveal my 10. My 10 is the Houston Texans.
Sure.
If the Chargers and the Texans were to go head to head right now, which way are you kind of going? Because I kind of think I'm still taking Houston.
If it were coming up this week, I would take the Chargers. And the reason, momentum. I think momentum seriously matters in a matchup like that. And
I don't think that they played great versus the Falcons, though. I kind of feel like they played down to the way that Atlanta was playing.
I don't think so either, but I feel like things like the Chargers are in a spot where like them coming out with a win, like they're like, damn, all right, that was like, it's a tricky
after
game,
a tough Ravens
but we
game.
won. Yeah, tough Ravens game, they won. Whereas the Texans, they're like, dude,
2 division games,
2 division games, and like it's been
2 teams that have less than three wins,
and it's been dicey. It just doesn't look as pretty, and they got to be frustrated with they're not meeting expectations, whereas the Chargers are exceeding expectations. So I think that's where kind of momentum's coming into play for me.
But do you think for the duration of the season that Houston will finish above or on top of the Chargers? It's close.
I think they'll be.
What doesn't help the Chargers' case is like you still got a game versus KC.
I know.
I think they still got a game versus the Broncos.
They do.
And that's like without considering anything else in their schedule. So like in those games are going to be a dogfight.
They are going to be a dogfight. I'm gonna say, like, I've been tooting the horn of the Texans all year, but I'm gonna give the edge to the Chargers. I need to see if I'm gonna pick the Texans confidently. I want to see them rattle 2 wins off going into the playoffs. That's what I need to see.
Okay,
2 good wins, like productive. I'm not saying win by 10, but I'm saying go out there, play both sides of the football well, overcome adversity, show me that you're not gonna go down.
Yeah, I like it. At 9, the Washington Commanders.
At 9, I got the Washington Commanders.
Boy, did they beat up those sorry-ass Titans.
That was such a fucking beat. The first...
What was it, 28-0 the first quarter?
Dude, it was... yes, it was. Like, absolute murder show. And we sat there and it's like, Brian Robinson did his thing. Like we thought, right? Did his thing. Jaden Daniels rushed like we thought he was going to rush. McLaurin got super actively involved. Like, everyone did their thing.
Yeah. And honestly, like, their defense hasn't played, like... horrible. Like they're not letting up like 40 points a game or anything like that. I do know they're having like guys like Bobby Wagner on the defense and Allen like are obviously
Jeremy Chin's played pretty good for them too.
Yeah, like and they obviously have like the coaching staff to really help credit that. And it just really goes to show you like a different result versus Dallas and just in that game alone, we're probably talking about the Commanders as a top 5 team where, their record, like at 9-5, probably reflects a little bit more to like a back end team right now. But Jaden still got the magic. Like, I know that they're a little bit banged up. Eckler's out. Outside of Terry McLaurin, they don't have a dependable wide receiver option. In a building year, to have this record and still be considered a top 10 team because of the quarterback that you selected second overall, not first, I feel like that's still pretty impressive. And I mean, they might not in a head-to-head game beat a lot of these teams above them, but I'd take the Commanders to beat the Chargers. Maybe not through coaching, but like talent and skill. Like I
think so.
I think
Like,
Jaden Daniels is playing better than Herbert. I think so. And I'm taking the Commanders over a team like Atlanta. Like the Bucs is a little bit tough because I think like the Bucs are gonna catch stride and really heat up, but
they scrap you too. The Bucs will literally never go away.
Yeah, it's just the skid that they went on without Godwin and Evans. I don't want to say it's tough to overcome because they're literally in the process of doing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's their record is definitely weighing on their spot right now because I could definitely hear a debate where if you wanted to say the Bucs were in here over like the Texans in like a top 10, I'd entertain it. You know what I mean?
They have to catch their stride. Like that's literally what it is.
And I think they're doing it.
They are. They're starting to do it. And listen, I know I just absolutely torched the Texans for what they did to the Jags, but like to me, the Panthers played better than the Jags did. So like I don't look at that. I don't like that they let the Panthers kind of come back, but to me that wasn't like the Bucs kind of letting it go. That was like the Panthers stepped up. Bryce Young stepped up.
I think we're all sleeping on what the Panthers have become.
Like
I'm not saying this team's going to be a top 10 team next year or anything like that, but they're playing better than 8+ organizations right now.
They're finding their identity too. They're literally in the process of doing it, and we're like, okay.
They're playing better than the 49ers are right now.
I totally agree.
Giants, Raiders, Jags, Titans.
Pats.
I'm not going to say the Pats.
You don't think so?
Because if the Pats win versus the Colts, it's a different result. They didn't lose that game. The Colts won that game. And those are the decisions at the end of the game that you make to be that difference. Because if they kicked a field goal, we could be talking about a moment for Drake May.
But I think the Panthers want to be in the field more than the Pats do right now. I think like the Panthers are enjoying themselves playing football more than the Pats do. I think Drake May is doing everything he can.
Yeah.
But I think like they're just going
Better than
like,
the Bears.
we're having these moments and we keep getting defeated, and to them it feels like they're going like, ugh. Whereas the Panthers, they're like, listen, dude, we're fucking back.
Yeah, the Panthers probably feeling a little bit differently about that trade than they were a couple weeks ago.
I totally agree.
You're 9.
Commanders. So we're the same thing. Feel the exact same way. Like to me, they kind of feel like the Texans of last year, where they got the number 2 quarterback. He was the best quarterback in the draft.
Wait till all of a sudden that defense there, dude.
Dude, that's what they randomly built a defense too. Like their new coach is doing a tremendous job for them.
Yeah.
So like Dan Quinn's doing great. Cliff Kingsbury's got a hold of the offense. They're able to mix up the run and the pass well, and it's like things are kind of going together for them. It's just they lack a little. I think they could use a little bit more talent on both sides of the ball.
I agree.
And once they get that, that's where next year they're going to be dangerous. But like that's again what Houston did this year, and like they haven't looked as good as they did last year. So we'll see.
Absolutely. At 8, the Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
Not your 8.
Not my 8. They're close.
Okay. I think the Packers like have one of the highest ceilings in the entire NFL. Are they disciplined enough to live up to that? That's what we're all trying to find out.
Who do you question for discipline? Like, what are the
Love?
It's Love.
Yeah, but that's not that I lack faith in his talents. It's just the same thing with Jameis, right? Look, you thought that game was over at halftime when the Broncos have a crazy long touchdown like that. And only Jameis in 50 seconds can make that a 3-point game again. But then again, with a 2-minute drive like at the end of the game, he's also the same person that can throw 2 pick sixes in that scenario.
Yeah.
And that's a play style. That's a gunslinger. Like, we've known that identity in the league for quite some time. And when it pays off, boy, does it pay off, and it looks damn good. But when it's ugly, there's not really much blame to go around but you. They've won games with backup quarterbacks. They've won games with injuries. They've won games with lackluster wide receiver play. And they've won in a bunch of different play styles, formats. They have a solid kicking game. I wish their special teams was a little bit more impactful than it is, but even when Josh Jacobs is taking breaks and Emmanuel Wilson's going in the backfields, like he's making plays out there. You have depth at the wide receiver position. Kraft is silently having a top 10 season when we're talking about, positional rankings at the end of the year. Like, I'm expecting him to be on both of our lists. It really does just come down to, one, they're behind the Vikings and the Lions with record but still head-to-head matchups to show. Do I think that the Packers are going to win the division? No, I'd love to say so for your bet, but
sorry, we got a whole nother one that's going.
Yeah. But do I think like the dominance and the consistency that Detroit has showed means more? Yeah, it does. Do I think that the Vikings record reflects a little bit better right now? I do, but does that mean that I think when they're both at their best that they're a better team? Probably not, if you want me to be real. And I know that the Packers have been there and we're 4 minutes away from doing the damn thing and getting to the bowl. I'm not confident in the Vikings' ability to make it out of round one of the playoffs. I'm not. And look, that's not a lack on JJ. It's not a lack on KOC. It's not a lack on Sam Darnold. We haven't been proven otherwise. It's the same Minnesota Vikings story when they are successful. If Miami was to get in the playoffs, it'd be the same thing. They go to Kansas City, they go to Baltimore, same result. Get wiped. I just think like that's what it is, and I think Green Bay can honestly play with any single team here. I think Philly would give them the biggest like obstacle to overcome, but that's just more of like their play style. I think I'm actually really interested in Thursday night's matchup because I kind of feel like Green Bay is in a scenario to sneak one from Detroit.
I think they're also especially with it being a Thursday game, it gets tricky. Green Bay, you said it really well. Like when Green Bay's at its best, it's like, oh my God, this team is going to be great for years to come. They're young. They have a great coach who's also young. Like the defense plays well. The offense is complementing it really well. Jordan Love is looking like a top 10 guy. All of a sudden, Jaden Reed's catching 2 touchdowns. You got Dobbs on the other side who can play well. Kraft's come alive. It's just the times that it doesn't, you go, dude, are they going to do this when it gets to the playoffs? Are they going to be able to have these shithead moments against some of the best teams and somehow come up on top? We'll see. They can play a really clean game against Detroit and come out with a win this week. They can also make a few mistakes that end up detrimental to their loss.
What I do want to add in is there might not be a better advantage week 10 and on than Lambeau Field.
I would agree with that. Buffalo might be the only other place.
Yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Different conference, both have the same advantage.
Yep. And Buffalo's physical and they'll fucking hit you too.
And that's why like I don't want to hear like the dome conversation and taking elements out of football because I don't like I understand for the product of the game and everything, all the financial implications that are involved with contracts and injuries and gambling and fantasy, like those are all things that you're not necessarily considering, but are impacted by the environment that's created for your home field.
Yep. And
I just feel like you would be doing a disservice to the longevity of football by taking out outdoor elements.
100%. It just changes the game. Like also like when we saw the first Steelers-Browns snow game, everyone was like, dude, this is sick. Like, can't wait to see it. This is awesome.
I loved it Sunday night, too, until it just got to, like, the point where, like, San Francisco was, like, all done.
They were done. They were literally white. But that's the other thing is, like, teams can't fucking bitch out, dude. Like, if you're not going to be tough enough to go play in any conditions, rain, sun, or shine, or snow, you don't fucking deserve to be the best team.
Any given Sunday. It's what it is.
Dude, you deal with it. Like, that's how the toughest teams become the toughest teams. You don't do it. Like, you're telling me, I bet if Detroit didn't have a dome, listen, I'm not saying they're still 12-1, but they're not going out there and they're not quitting on the football field like San Fran did.
No.
They don't do that.
That's because the mentality of a coach.
It is, 100%. And that's the thing is, like, these teams need to fucking toughen up at points, dude. And
absolutely.
I totally agree with that. So, Steve, Packers, I had at 7. So, very, very close spot. We touched on that. I don't really want to go into a whole other spiel when we get there. But I'll give you my 8. It is the Baltimore Ravens.
Wow.
Dude, I just keep seeing them get into positions where they play really well, they lose the game. They play really well, they lose the game, and it's against good teams that it's happening to a lot.
Why? Why is Baltimore losing these games?
I can't even put my finger on it. Like, I know their pass defense has looked fucking terrible all year, but I'm not going to blame that as the sole reason. They're just, when it comes down to the clutch moment, they are not playing clutch football.
But honestly, like, Lamar is playing his best football of his career, and this is following 2 MVP seasons.
And Derrick Henry's running the ball insane. You know who's playing a fucking terrible season? Justin Tucker is losing them games.
I said I didn't want to have this conversation with Anthony, but I told him, I'm like, right now, look, like I understand, like, one of the greatest kickers to ever do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're telling me that, like, say this was to happen for another week or two before the end of the season, that you don't think that, like, coming down to, like, an AFC championship or a Super Bowl, that a kick like that can be the difference in a game?
They said it on commentary too. Is they're like, how many more weeks? Was it Romo commentating the game?
It might have been. I'm not.
They're going, how many more weeks is this going to keep going on before you say, damn, we're getting really close to playoffs. You need those kicks in the playoffs, because he makes those 2 kicks. They win the game because what, they lost by 5?
Three losses this season. All of those losses total up 22-point difference. In those games, Justin Tucker has 22 points missed on kicks.
And that's the thing with the Ravens is that's an insane stat. But with the Ravens, it's like they get in the playoffs, they can beat anyone at any time. They can do that. I fully believe that.
I'm not out on the Ravens. And look, if you want to say that, like, the Steelers are going to win the division, like, you can. I still don't actually believe that. Like, I don't think the Steelers are going to finish the season with 3 losses. I think they're going to lose more games than
I think they got maybe 2 L's. I think the Ravens got 1 more in them, though. And the Ravens, don't they already have, 5 losses?
8-5.
So, like, that's where it's, listen, they lose 1 more game. They're at 11.
They play each other again.
They do play each other again, but the thing is, like, Steelers are 2-0 against the division now. It was Bengals. 2-1. It was Bengals. They dropped them to the Browns, so.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what happens in that Ravens-Steelers game can be very telling. Obviously, this is a must-win game for the Steelers, like this Sunday versus the Browns. But I know everybody and their mother was on, like, the Bengals this week to beat the Steelers at home. Maybe it's in Pittsburgh that goes down. And, like, you're talking about if you lose to the Ravens and then you lose that division game to the Bengals, do the Steelers play the Chiefs towards the back end of the season? Or another?
They get the Chiefs at the end.
Yeah, like, that. Those are 3 games right there. And if the Ravens drop 1, that gets them both to the same record.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it comes down in the AFC North.
I know. I really do trust, like, and honestly, like, John Harbaugh's a great coach. Dude, Mike Tomlin's, if Dan Campbell's not in the league and the Lions aren't 12-1, Mike Tomlin's a runaway for Coach of the Year.
I still think he's a coach of the year.
I just don't think they'll give it to him. Like, does he deserve it? Maybe. But I think that the way that the Lions get talked about, like, they're just going to give it to Dan Campbell.
He's made the hardest decision a coach has ever made independently and successfully in a decade with the Russell Wilson switch.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't consult anybody, was against the world, and that was still the result. So give him all the applause in the world, and all the moves that they needed to make with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson helped get this team to where that was. So we can't forget that first half of the season either, with the way their defense is playing. Brought in Arthur Smith, and now is clearly a successful offensive. Yep. Like, those are all decisions that he has a big saying. But it is going to be interesting. I'm not going to disrespect the Steelers and say that they're not a contender, but it's really tough for me to say that they're more likely to win a Super Bowl than the Baltimore Ravens.
I'm such a believer in the Steelers right now. I'm not fucking.
I know. No. I got you.
I really do. I watch them play, and, like, I'm sitting there. I'm like, dude, if they get in a shootout with the Bengals, they're not going to win. They get in a shootout with the Bengals, and they win.
If they were to pull the Chiefs in a wild card divisional round, I don't know if they would beat them.
I think they give them a super tough game.
Oh,
I think
100%.
they're such a gritty team. And, like, dude, I honestly think that T.J. Watt eats that offensive line so bad that, like, we may see a situation where if they play each other, it's going to look like the Super Bowl against the Bucs. Maybe not the score-wise, but with Mahomes running for his life every second of the game.
I actually don't think the Chiefs, if they do play, we have to fact check that. If they play each other, you're not going to see a lot unveiled by the Chiefs when they play each other. Like they're going to keep it very simple, very basic, not give them any tape.
They should. They probably should, but I would imagine the Chiefs are going to get the 1 seed. Steelers are going to be looking at 3 because I think 4 seed is probably just going to be the AFC South.
And the Bills will be 2.
Yeah, the Bills will be 2.
If not one, bro.
If not, they might because they have the head-to-head, but it's about the division, and the Bills have kind of wiped the division now.
Yeah.
Are they undefeated in the division right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they've lost any.
They lost. They
have one loss, right?
They won 2.
2.
None of which was to the
AFC
Ravens but yeah, sorry, going back to the Ravens, I got them here at 8. Listen, 8's a great spot. It's shocking because it's the Ravens down here, but I'm looking at their record. They're sitting at 5 losses right now, and it's like they keep losing the games that I'm looking at. I want them to go out there and win, and like sometimes they look good in it. Like they outplayed the Eagles for part of that game, but they lost it at the end.
It's just situations. It's your third downs where like there's a little miscue or a deflected pass by a defense that doesn't extend a drive, and they play like, I don't want to say a safer conservative style of football, but like they trust their special teams to like go out there and make plays and stuff like that too. So
and someone's got to step up and stop a wide receiver 1 on that defense too, man. It's like it's really, I get it, like. AJ Brown only went 5 for 66, but yeah, it's been like we went 5 for 66 last week. AJ Brown, I get it, that's not a lot, but then you have Saquon doing his thing.
Goddard went off.
Goddard had a great, exactly. Yeah. So it's listen.
They are playing without Roquan right now.
They are, but listen, I can't just put them up top because they're the Ravens right now.
They're outside my top 5.
They're outside, yeah. So again, here at 8, it's not going to be far off where you have them.
It's not far off. Like, we know at 7, the Minnesota Vikings. I have them right above the Minnesota Vikings at 6.
Okay.
I think like I didn't base this off of head to head, but I think the Ravens are head, shoulders, knees, and toes a better football team than the Minnesota Vikings.
So I have the Vikings right at 6. So we pretty much have a very similar 5 to 10 here.
Yeah.
Maybe different spots, but like, dude, it's close.
Yeah.
Because Minnesota, like, they don't quit either. You saw them against the Cardinals where it's like, dude, it wasn't working for him. It wasn't working for him. Then all of a sudden they kept their head in it. They stayed close enough, and they came back and they won the game.
When it comes down to it, I'll take Lamar all day long over any. Like, look, I know JJ is going to be a great weapon for them to carry into the playoffs. Don't matter if Sam Darnold can't get him the ball.
Correct.
And we've seen that through the past 5 weeks that I don't want to say that they've had like some troubles, but that's kind of been schemed out so that they can prioritize winning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think Minnesota has a good ground game. And
they are struggling on the ground.
Dude, if Cam Akers is being a more successful running back than Aaron Jones, then you have bigger problems right now.
But the Vikings are in a spot right now where they're like, dude, we didn't even think we'd be fucking 10-2 right
now.
No,
not at all. And that's why, like, I don't want to discredit them here either. But I do just want to say, like, I don't care what the Ravens' record is. I will always have them above this Minnesota Vikings team unless something happened to Lamar. Like,
Lamar is. Listen, if Lamar didn't already win 2 MVPs, he's a runaway with the MVP.
Josh Allen's going to be this year's MVP.
I think he is too. I think
he has to be.
He should.
Yeah.
Dude, I
actually think that they should be the favorite for the Super Bowl of the entire league.
My buddy said, Chris, I'm calling you out right now. He goes, dude, I would love to see Mahomes get his 3rd. I'm like, for what?
Doesn't he already have 3?
No, I think he got 2 MVPs. He has a Super
MVPs.
Dude, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, for what, dude?
Yeah.
For 11 interceptions, 19 touchdowns, tied for the most interceptions of the league, playing his worst year in history when Lamar is literally having his best season. Joe Burrow is having a better season.
Mahomes does not deserve the MVP right now, and like Saquon would absolutely deserve it above him. I would vomit for the rest of my life if Saquon won an MVP on the Eagles.
They're
not going to give it to a running back.
If they didn't give it to Derrick Henry in Tennessee, I cannot convince myself that they'll just give it to Saquon in Philly.
Did you see that Saquon's on pace to break the rushing record versus the Giants?
Is he really?
Yeah, 2,100 yards.
You know what's happening,
dude. I am betting my life on Saquon that day.
But I wonder if they have a 200+ prop on the fucking.
Bro, for him, like They might, honestly. Like, I know receivers, like the highest it was for Nico Collins on Sunday was 120. What did he finish with? 119.
They know too well, man.
Bro, it's crazy. It's crazy. But the Minnesota Vikings, Their defense isn't great. And I do feel like I think the Bucs would give them a hell of a game.
I think so too.
So like that would be very intriguing. This Atlanta game this Sunday is going to be very telling, and if this team should maybe be a little bit more respected, closer to a top 5 position, or maybe closer to like this back end spot. I mean, they're a great offensive team. They would need the right draw in the playoffs for everything to work out for them to get past round 1. Like, yeah, they can potentially win their division if they were to beat the Lions and the Packers were to beat the Lions, but I can't sit here and imagine that Detroit's going to shit the bed for the rest of the season like that. Yeah. Not a chance in hell. But they definitely impressed this season. And 6 with the Baltimore Ravens, I'm not going to elaborate on it too much more. Like you said, they just got to be better situationally. Third downs. Be more specific with what, or intentful with what you're trying to do on first and second down. If you know Justin Tucker's struggling right now, then like maybe go for it on 4th and 5.
I totally agree, dude. If you're in a 50 or more spot and you're seeing Justin Tucker struggling, you're 4th and 3, 4th and 4. Just go for it. Like, you have Lamar and Derrick Henry. Just fucking make them try and figure out a read option, and then have, like, Zay Flowers run a little boot on the side, and you have a third option there.
Put Lamar in a boot action. If they're playing man and they blitz, he just takes off. Mm-hmm. And look, it gives Justin Tucker the opportunity to still kick point after touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Get the kicking thing down pat. You got 5 weeks. Figure it out. And just look to, dig a little deeper in your playbook. So that's just kind of how
you got
to
think that's all he's thinking about right now too is, dude, I can't miss another one. Dude, I can't miss another one. Like, am I tarnished? Because his legacy, I don't think will ever be tarnished because of what he's already done.
For sure.
But it's like, this is one of those things where it's like at some point you're going to have to be like, dude, Vinatieri shit the bed at one point.
5. The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers are 5.
Right above the Ravens. I honestly didn't want to do it. But I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, right now, if you were to equate the offense and defense, I'm trusting Boswell to make a kick over Justin Tucker, and that's legit the reasoning on why I have them above Baltimore.
Boswell's nasty.
Bro, he's so good.
He's literally nasty.
Next year, don't draft Boswell, though. Like, these kickers do this every year. They have, like, the one good Jake Elliott, one good year, Koo. Like, all these guys, like, they... Greg Zuerlein. Where he's on a couch eating Lay's chips right now.
I know, bro. He was fucking Legatron back in the day.
Zane Gonzalez. Like,
who you trust? You always trust Braden Aubrey, though.
For now.
It's 2 years in, but I'm already calling him the GOAT.
Stay tuned. No, yeah, Boswell's the difference. Tomlin's that dude. Russ is playing really well. Still some tough division games and some AFC matchups to come down the stretch, but I feel really good about where the Steelers are right now, where they are defensively. You haven't even heard Minkah Fitzpatrick too much this year, which I don't want to say that I'm not a fan of, but I just kind of think it's because you don't have to.
You don't. The rest of the defense is playing fucking insane.
Phenomenal.
Highsmith, Watt,
Peyton
Wilson, Patrick Queen's got his role. Like,
Preston Smith, Herbig, Hayward in the middle.
So I also have the Steelers at 5. I want to go through what they've done recently, right? They went to a shootout with the Bengals and won. Teams have kind of done that this year, but like for the Steelers to be the defensive-minded team that they are, the slow roll, run you over, physical football team, and then to go out there and drop 44, insane. Joe Burrow put up 38 points for his offense. Well, I think actually 31 because Cam Taylor broke out the pick 6, and the Steelers just went out there and fucking smacked him in the face for it. They lost to the Browns, tough divisional game in the snow. They beat a tough Ravens team. Listen, the Ravens are tough to beat. They beat them in the tough, gritty game that the Ravens usually find a way to win. They beat the Commanders, a team that was rolling. They go and they beat the Commanders.
That could have went either way, too, but they got it done.
They got it done. Then they beat the Giants. They smacked up on the Jets.
I had to say the Giants.
I'm sorry. We're going through all of them. I'm sorry. They smacked up on the Jets. They smacked up on the Raiders. They lost a fucking what the hell happened game against the Cowboys. I get it, but every team has some of those. They beat the Chargers. That's a fucking tough team to beat. They lost a sketchy one to the Colts, but again, now we're getting into the territory where they had like Fields in. Since the switch to Russell Wilson, man, they've been running teams over. Dude, it's looked really good. The Pittsburgh Steelers have been on fire. They're winning games with defense when they need to. They just won last week with offense. They're winning games with Chris Boswell, like you said. They're winning all facets of the game. All the running backs
involved.
And Tomlin is out coaching everybody right now. Everybody. I take him against it. Listen, dude, if I see Steelers +3 on the road against the fucking Lions, I'm taking it. Yeah. I don't give a shit.
It dead ass does not matter.
No shit, dude, because they're that fucking good.
For the rest of the season, I mean, they shouldn't be dogs for the rest of the season. Maybe against the Kansas City Chiefs game, they'd be at 3.5 dogs. Mm-hmm. That might be the only other time for the rest of the season that they would be, unless it's the Ravens.
Yep.
Take it.
100%.
Tease it a 5 if you want to, but you don't even need.
Take the fucking money line.
I was just gonna say, take the fucking money line.
It doesn't matter. They win it every time. They always find the way. It's insane. I'm so happy with all this because, like, dude, Mike Tomlin's such a likable guy. Great coach. I'm happy to see a legend in Russell Wilson get his career back on track.
Wow, you just called him a legend,
dude. He's a good listen. He had his shit years.
The non-Hall of Fame conversation over.
I think it was hard to leave him out. Like, I really do think it was still hard to leave him out. I think it's over. I mean, I don't know that it's over. It'll always, because people will always fucking yap. But listen, dude, I'm in on Russ again. Like,
he's got to do it again next year, and there's nothing that's going to lead me to believe that anybody else is going to be the quarterback for them next year other than Russell Wilson.
Like, he's supposed to be successful with fucking Nat Hackett. Look at what they're doing in the Jets fucking room right now with the roster that they have.
Yeah.
Look at what the Broncos are doing the second Nat Hackett leaves.
Wait till they add another wide receiver. You know what I mean? Dude, I know they got Mike Williams, but
that doesn't mean that's fucking shit, dude. I take Calvin Austin over Mike Williams any day.
At 4, Kansas City Chiefs.
Steve, at 4, I get the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh boy, did we just fucking combine this into the Sandbox rankings?
At 3, the Philly Eagles.
At 3, the Philly Eagles.
At 2, the Detroit Lions.
Okay, I got Buffalo. I got Buffalo too. I'm putting the Lions at 1.
So let's go back a little bit. Yeah. But Kansas City, I'd like, especially, I know it's a division game versus the Raiders, and I know it's Pacheco's first game back. This team, if they're going to play the way that they are, they need to run the football. They need to get that, like, figured out. They're not playing poorly defensively. They're just not turning the ball over as much as you would like. I know that there's a little bit of a lack of faith in their kicking game because of, everything that's kind of gone on. But this is a team, like we just had this conversation before the show. They're not playing to win. They're playing not to lose. Yep. And honestly, when you're a team like them and you're trying to, do this year after year after year, you figure out a lot about you and you figure out a lot about the NFL. I think that they have enough camaraderie to make it work. Do I think that there was some plays in like the Raiders game where him and Kelsey were off a little bit? Like, yeah. Do I think D-Hop can play better? Yeah. Do I think down the stretch he's going to? I absolutely do. But Kelsey's playing better this year than he did last.
Listen, and I know that it's a division game. It is what it is. But, like, dude, they didn't win. The Raiders lost. And, like, that's a different kind of story that we're seeing. Like you just talked about with the Colts and the Patriots. The Colts went out there and they won that game. The Chiefs have had a couple of these games this year now where it's like they don't win, the other team loses. Or, the black and white guys on the field lose. But find a way for them to win. But listen, they get lucked out. Like, we'll talk about this with the Raiders, right? They get the flag, and it was a flag. It's a flag. They get what they needed to win the game. Scraped by when Aiden O'Connell in a couple seconds marched their ass down. Aiden O'Connell in a couple hours marched their ass down the field with a broken thumb.
But let's keep in mind, last year, this was an Aiden O'Connell that threw for 1,400 yards with Devontae Adams.
But it's also a guy that keeps going in and out and in and out.
But that's not him.
It's like, yeah, I get it, but it's injured. But like, he's injured, and then he goes out there and does this, and he has a good performance. And you go to a 3-point loss, and we talked about the Panthers being scrappy, but they're the Chiefs. They're 10-point favorites. They're the fucking Chiefs. They go get scrappy with the Panthers.
I think what your takeaway is here, bet against the spread versus the Chiefs.
Apparently, because then they face the Bills. The Bills handle them. They barely scrape out a win against the Broncos. They go to OT with a banged-up Buccaneers team. They handle the Niners because they just fucking own the Niners. They realistically do. They handle the Saints. Not a pretty game, though. If you remember that game, it was not that pretty. The Chargers was a close game. They win by a touchdown at the end of the game. Falcons, they win by a touchdown at the end of the game. They scrape by the Bengals also. The Ravens game, they won by a touchdown, yes, but it's one of those games where it was close all game. They got their final drive and they got their touchdown. Listen, I commend a team that can go out there and find ways to win games, but there is a narrative that comes with the Chiefs before they get out there, and is they're three-peating. They're the best team. Pat Mahomes, the best guy ever. You have Chris Collinsworth talking about Pat Mahomes in a Bills versus 49ers game somehow.
What does that have to do with the Chiefs?
But that's the thing is like exactly everyone talks about it. It's like they have all these expectations, man. You have to live up to them because if you don't, you're gonna get us talking about you on the podcast.
Talking about goals for a season. Every single goal that they've gone out to set for the season is right in front of them, though. So yeah, it's not pretty, but they're also not harming themselves. And I just kind of feel like I'm not saying that you have to credit them because of that, but I just kind of feel like if they put themselves at any other point in that game in the quarters 1 through 3 before winning it down the stretch, that's a drastically different result. But it works out, and they have one loss, and the 1 seed playing through Kansas City, and the playoffs are through them, is everything that they wanted at week 1, and it's still here today.
And people will go nuts because, oh my God, they have KC at 4. How's it not 1? They're 12-1. They're going to win the Super Bowl again. And that's another part of the fucking narrative that I'm so sick of. Is like a team can't fucking lose.
I don't think that they're going to win the Super Bowl.
I don't think so either. I don't know if they'll make the I think they'll get upset a little bit earlier than people think. I'm not saying they lose right off the bat, but I think that they might get a tough draw early because there are some really good teams in the AFC that can play them really tough.
They would beat Houston, the Chargers, the Broncos. They would beat all those teams.
They got the Ravens number. I think they beat the Ravens.
I honestly think that they would beat Pittsburgh too.
I can't just give it to them yet.
No, yeah,
it's all good. They can for sure, but I just can't give it to them.
I wouldn't give them the Ravens game, so that's our difference.
Well, the Chiefs are also looking like, listen, we have 3 teams above them, yeah, but those 3 teams, their stars have come out to play.
Yeah.
Where Patrick Mahomes is the guy, and while he is producing at points in the season, dude, it took him till now to have a 300-yard game with no turnovers. It's like,
yeah.
Listen, dude, he's a great quarterback. He is the most skilled quarterback in the NFL, but this is not his season. It's not.
Absolutely.
He's played poorly this season, and when you're relying on him to win you playoff games like they have relied on him to win playoff games for his entire career, in order for them to be successful, he's not doing it this year. I don't have the confidence that he's just going to be able to pick it up. Next year could be a different story again, but this year something feels a little off about him.
Yeah, 3 is the Philly Eagles. We talked about this a little bit. Jalen Hurts is playing that ball. They obviously have one of the best players in the game right now in Saquon Barkley. But I just kind of feel like the most impressive thing that people aren't talking about enough is how good their defense is playing.
So much, especially after the start.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I just kind of want to talk about the secondary a little bit. Like, you're not even talking about James Bradbury anymore. You're talking about the young guys that they have in there, and DeJean and Mitchell. Obviously, Slay's a little bit banged up, but you got Bond at the linebacker position playing so well, and then you just get like a sprinkle of 3 or 4 sacks from a Nakobe Dean, a Davis, a Carter.
James Carter,
yeah. So and Brandon Graham is playing some of the best ball of his entire career too. So I'm not going to elaborate too much on Philly. 1, because fuck the Eagles, but but no, two actually, because I mean, you can argue Philly's the hottest team in football and should be 1, but I think that they still have to. I still feel like Detroit's the team to beat in the NFC.
Totally
until I'm proven otherwise. Look, I know Detroit had a weird couple of weeks, like Chiefs-esque, I would kind of say. And you know whatever happened with Gibbs this past week and like the board and like all that, it is going to be a little bit weird. I'm interested to see if like they just feed Monty and like Gibbs gets a little bit of a snub because like that's kind of like a stupid thing to do. But at the same time, like I love Dan Campbell's response. Like everybody can know what our code words are. You got to come out there and you have to be better than us like at that play. And like that's how I feel about football. Like I don't care if you know that I'm running a fucking tush push or a Hail Mary. If my team goes out there and executes, we were better, and that's how we won the game. It's not because you knew or didn't know the call.
And I think that when you talk about Lions and Eagles together, the Lions I think they're cleaner between the ears. I think they really they go out there and if Philly were to get punched in the mouth, I could see Philly just unraveling. If the Lions get punched in the mouth, they go into halftime and like, dude, we're so much better than this. Let's go fucking show everybody.
My whole thing with this conversation specifically between these two NFC teams is a lot of Philly's success has came from one person. If a team was to somehow slow down Saquon, it's nearly impossible right now. But if a team was to find out how to do so, their passing game hasn't played well enough to make me believe that just Devonta, AJ, and Goddard are playing better than an Amon-Ra, a Jamison Williams, a Gibbs, and a Laporta. And look, the numbers aren't there for a lot of those Detroit guys, but the impact big plays that they have are the difference.
And the moments, dude, when they need to have it, they have it.
Absolutely. Like, even Tim Patrick's playing a lot better than who else. Like, it would be like after Devonta Smith, like, that's it.
Khalif Raymond needs to return a kick and go far with it. He will. Like, if they need that moment, he gets it. Like, they all do it. And they're doing this without Aiden Hutchinson on the back end.
Yeah.
You have Brian Branch, who is playing like one of the best secondary players in the entire NFL right now. It's like, dude, they're doing the damn thing. And
just brought in Jamal Adams. Like, they're filling in with bums off the street to just literally fix their roster and finding ways to win.
And it's because team players will go to Detroit and they buy in to what Detroit's selling.
Absolutely. And one, just with the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen's arguably the best player in the entire league right now. We talked about addition by subtraction. Don't even feel like Amari Cooper is playing his best football there. Nope. James Cook has been unreal. Khalil Shakir has been unreal. And it's a defensive unit. It's not defensive players. And on top of that, they have the elements in their corner. And I don't want, like, McDermott isn't the best coach. He's nowhere near that. But is he coaching them well enough right now?
Yep.
He is.
He's Zach Tayloring them back in a couple of years. Like, it's like the same thing with Zach Taylor. I think they're pretty much on the same level. It's just when Zach Taylor was coaching the Bengals all the way to the Super Bowl, he was coaching them well enough, like you said. And that's what McDermott's doing right now. You said it perfectly. Josh Allen's playing well. Shakir's doing his thing. James Cook's playing well. Ray Davis is getting mixed in. And when you need Ty Johnson, he gets mixed in. And the defense is playing, like you said, as a unit. It's just working out for Buffalo right now. They're a scary, scary team to play. Really, really scary team to play. And I would not be shocked if they're the ones to make the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. Anything that you'd like to elaborate on before we head over to the fantasy rankings? I know we're going to talk about a lot.
It's going to be a crazy finish. It is going to be. That NFC North is something you have to take a look at. Both Norths, the AFC and the NFC North, got to keep an eye on.
You know what I'm excited for? Some Saturday games. We got to get you here for a Saturday night football game.
Booze up, buddy. Booze up. But I tell you what. December
you're
14th,
Ubering.
I know. December 14th, Toy Drive. Make sure you're there. There's no UFC after that on Saturdays, too. So Saturdays
Wow. Let's go. Let's go. Since the Sandbox fans, thank you for listening to the Power Rankings. We'll give you one more rundown before the playoffs, but jump over to the Fantasy Rankings. We're going to get you right for Week 14. You guys know the deal. Peace, love, 5 stars, nothing less.